My report today is a continuation of Miss Castilla's report. I hope that by now you already watched her video, but don't worry if you still don't because my discussion mostly consists of description of the experiences and learnings of pre-service teachers as they site visited a particular community. So my discussion is still about intersections of culture and community, developing a critical sense of place in social studies teacher education by Jason R. Harshman. So my report revolves around the narration of what pre-service teachers experienced and learned as they visited the place called Winland Park. So at the time of their site visit to Winland Park, they encounter some community leaders and also others, community stakeholders who taught them things like community projects and the existing issues in the community. But more than that, they were able to realize of what it means to become a teacher and what teachers are responsible for to both students and also to the community. So, as we go along with our discussion, we'll be able to know what are the strategies that the pre-service teachers um, formulated in order to include community and cultural knowledge in their lessons as they become student teachers. So the narration may focus on a single place, particularly in Winland Park, but I think the lessons that the pre-service teachers who visited the community is as well helpful to us as aspiring educators of social studies. So let's proceed. So place-based learning experiences in Winland Park. So let's begin by understanding the place Winland Park. So Winland Park is a 3.965 hectare park that was named after the City of Columbus councilman Edgar L. Winland. So Winland Park is a neighborhood north of downtown Columbus, Ohio, and encompassed by the boundaries of the University District. So around the area, there are factories, there are residential buildings, there are commercial and entertainment facilities. So the neighborhood has been plagued also with crime and drug problems for decades, but has recently seen a flood of new investment that brought growth and revitalization of the neighborhood. So in a conference table, Doris, the Winland Park neighborhood was with Shannon, a local historian and a former teacher, and they are facing in front of them aspiring educators or pre-service teachers. Then Doris told the pre-service teachers that every kid in this neighborhood is mine, and you are role models. I am happy to see so many men around the table because our boys don't have that around here. But you are all role models, and we want the best for our children. So that you learn here needs to stay with you because we're counting on you. So it is being highlighted on the presentation, the words role model. So aside from being a second parent, to students, teachers are also expected to become role models to our students. So a positive role model serve as an example, as an inspiration to children or to students to become, to live a meaningful lives. So teachers are not only expected to talk and talk to students what they want students to learn, but also they are expected to walk the talk so that they become a good example to their students. So there are different qualities of a role model according to Marilyn Price Mitchell, but one of those qualities is that a role model should have a commitment to community. So what does it mean? So role model is other focused as opposed to self focused. So according to study of Mitchell, students admired people who served on local boards, reached out to neighbors in need, voted, and were active members of community organizations. So, we teachers are also community builders. We build the community into becoming a better place to live in and also to inspire students to help the community as well. So, next, moving across the imagined boundary. So, although each participant had lived within a short walk of Windland Park for 4 years or more, none had ever traveled to the east side of 4th Street, where the Windland Park neighborhood is located, because, as many participants shared, it was a place they perceived as dangerous. So, imagine boundary. What it actually means is that border inside of our minds. There is no physical boundary but mental boundary. It is our perception or imagination, perhaps, or at some instances, our judgments and biases that is preventing us or hindering us from going beyond and knowing what is it in the other side of our comfort zones. So the east of Winland Park may or may not be dangerous. We never know. But only those who investigated, who deeply studied and tried to understand the area knows. Moving across the imagined boundary doesn't only mean going to the area physically, although it's an ideal to learn the other's community and their culture, but by studying it by means of asking different people who came from the area or who's been living in the area for so long, have a big impact to our understanding and maybe clear some misconceptions and biases with regards to the community or to the area. So there are so many east of Winland Park in different parts of the world who are perceived to be dangerous or who have negative connotations to the place. So even in the Philippines, we are geographically united. However, there are still imagined boundary in the Philippines. So there are still Filipinos who have preconceived judgment that about Mindanao, that it is a place dominated with terrorists and there are frequent wars and bombings, which is not actually and entirely true. As Mindanaoans, we too may also have judgment or maybe stereotypes to other regions as well. So it is better to discuss these things and to clear out any misconceptions if there is any. So this concept of imagined boundary is not only applicable to geography but also in terms of human relationship. We all have this imagined boundary that is separating us from our neighbors or from the community we are living in. So this imagined boundary may be advantageous to some instances because it protects us from people that will only cause harm to us. But at the same time, it also has its disadvantage because um, imagined boundary prevents us to connect with other people and to build healthy relationship with one another. So moving across the boundary means neglecting the biases we have in mind and try to talk to those people, know their stories and their experiences. So by this we'll be able to gain friends, not only gain friends but also um, learnings that we can share also to other people, and especially to our students. So the border the participants imagined to exist was a result of how they had racialized here and there along 4th Street. Participants conceptualized here as homogeneous and a place primarily inhabited by white people, while there is where black people live. So the east side of 4th Street became a place that existed on the other side of an imagined boundary of participants. To cross 4th Street, although they possessed the free will and also the white privilege to do so, it was still invisible for the participants. So the imagined boundary that existed in Winland was a result of the segregation between the white people and the people of color, especially the blacks. Um, there here where people live is homogeneous and safe, while the there is where blacks are living and are not safe or dangerous for them. So, but, 'di ba, wherever we go, there will always be good and also dangerous people. In some places, we might think that that place is a dangerous, but if we only try to go to that place or try to understand it, we will be able to realize that there are people who are also sympathetic, who also have a good heart living on the area. There are also places that we think are safe, but actually is not. So as much as possible, we should know the people as who really they are, and not only rely on hearsay or what the media represent, because there are times that it is not entirely true. So learning from a community. So part of the learning experience in Windland Park included a session with a representative from the City Housing Commission. So Mark was invited to discuss how the nonprofit foundation was working with neighborhood leaders and residents to rebuild affordable homes so no one was pushed out of the area. So by meeting with the representative, which is Mark from the housing organization, the teacher candidates not only learned about investments and rebuilding projects, but also they were able to realize what it means to live on a residential streets. You are also working to improve. So team Tim is also a pre-service teacher. So he admitted that he was under the impression that people worked to get out of the Winland Park, and was surprised to learn that people not only work there, but they live there too. They are working not just to live more comfortably, but they're also helping their neighbors. And he said, I did not expect that. Then Corbin, a 25-year-old man who grew up in Columbus, said that you never hear about those types of things. You only hear about the bad stuff, and there is a housing project taking place, but never that the people leading the project also want to live in the neighborhood too. So as at first, Tim had different perception towards the people of Winland Park, but upon hearing the discussion of Mark, who is from the area, he was able to learn things about the people of Winland Park he never knew before until he visited the community and by studying it. So Corbin is right when he said that you never hear about those type of things. You only hear the bad stuff. So sometimes media influences our negative perception towards other culture and community. That is why learning a particular culture and community from the people who are actually experiencing and living with it actually creates a big difference or a significant difference to our understanding to a particular community and culture. So actually in the Philippines, we also have this concept of helping our neighbors, similar to Winland Park. So it is called bayanihan. So it is also a good thing to use media to let other people know that this kind of Filipino culture exists, so that they will not only remember the Philippines as a land where traffic is prevalent and there are garbages everywhere, but we should also introduce to them the positive things about the Philippines. Actually, I have watched a TED Talk video of a foreigner named Thomas Graham. So his TED Talk is entitled "The Genius of the Filipino Boer." So in that talk, um, he recounted his visit to the Philippines, and also he enumerated the positive traits and the positive culture of Filipinos, and that includes the bayanihan. Okay. So, as a resident of Winland Park and an employee of the city government, Mark offered a unique perspective of what it means to live in a place you are also working to rebuild. So each summer, Mark hosts a few barbecues in front of in front of his home. So, and everyone in Winland Park are invited. So, during his presentation, Mark recounted the time when a father approached him at a barbecue about something that had happened with the man's son. So, he told Mark that his son came out to be gay. So, um, before that, his son had a conversation with Mark, who is also gay. So at first, the father was angry towards Mark because Mark spoke with his son about his sexuality. But then he realized that Mark was just being a caring neighbor who helped his son in a way that he, as a father, did not feel he could. So then Mark told the pre-service teachers that those experiences, you don't know all that goes into kids' day or a family's dynamic unless you talk to them and get to know them. So sometimes there are things, diba, that we are not comfortable talking with our parents, in which we can openly talk with other people. So learning is not only limited to the four corners of the classroom. We also learn with the people we interact every day. So it's just important that we have to ready to listen to whatever they are about to say. They may have experiences that we don't yet experience, but we can have a priceless lessons that we can gain from their experience. So as social studies, 'di ba, they may um, experience, as they say, may be a best teacher, but it is also good to learn from others' experience. So a social studies teacher, as we learn about the community, part of it is learning about the people and their experiences, and that we learn from other people, and what we learn from other people can also be shared to other people, especially to our students. However, Liz have a different um, connection or relationship with her neighborhood. So Liz um, told in the reflection, she said that she never had the sense of community in her place. I mean, we know our neighbors, but we don't know them like that. We just live in the same place. And I went to school with neighbors' kids, but we don't really share any other connection. So Lee's distinction helps us understand that physical proximity within a residential area does not mean that there is a network of support and care for the people within the place. So I can also relate to Lee's experience because not all of our neighbors um, can actually we can rely on, or we are in good terms. There is this lack of connection. So in order to overcome this, again we have to move across the imagined boundary, talk to them, listen to whatever they're about to say. It's never going to be easy doing this, but by actually practicing building connection with our neighbors or with with other people in the community, we're also making or building the community a much stronger one. So proceed. So teaching in and about community. So when asked to reflect about the Windland Park experience, Liz shook her head slowly as she said, "So understanding what it means to be a teacher and what a teacher is responsible for has expanded yet again." Then she elaborated that responsibilities as a teacher would go beyond making sure that the students understood social studies topics. I learned this because I learned this week those responsibilities go beyond teaching government to include how actions of governments and policy boards affect people and where they live, because those also affect students. So, in addition to local connections and political or economic developments that can be used as part of social studies class that seeks to build relevancy to students' communities, participants develop new understandings of the intersections of culture and place. So, as the experience of Liz, social studies educate as we can as social studies educator in the future, we should also thought students about not only about knowledge that are descriptive or propositional about governance, especially about governance, but also we should teach students how government and the leaders' decisions and actions can actually affect the people in the community. So Rob, another participant who grew up and attended schools in a suburb of the city, wrote as part of the reflection. He said that neighborhoods are made of different classes and races as well as cultures. People might think a place has a culture, but a particular place isn't restricted to particular or single dimensional culture or community. And if we think about culture and community, place as being constantly reconstructed, along with what Doris and Greg talked about, we can't simply ignore what's going on in our students' lives. So this is true because in a single community, it doesn't necessarily homogeneous in terms of classes, races, and also culture. There will still be existing differences. However, if there is understanding and deep understanding and respect between one another, everyone can live under the same community. So the realization that the neighborhoods that make up the school district they would student teach in are not how they had imagined them to be help participants reimagine their sense of place and responsibility as educators. So as participants move into student teaching, discussions about culturally responsive and place-conscious lesson planning continued. So here are examples of strategies pre-service teachers turned student teachers integrated culturally responsive and place consciousness to their lesson planning. So team developed a project that included use of documentaries that had been made by a local film company about the multiple neighborhoods that exist throughout the city to illustrate change over time and teach about diversity regarding race, ethnicity, and class across the city. So another student teacher, Heather, used what she learned about the construction of an expressway in a majority of African and American neighborhood in the city when she thought about the effects of the Eisenhower Thruway system as part of her U.S. history course. So there is a connection in the strategy of Heather, there is a connection between the past and the present. So the discussion about the Eisenhower throwaway system became relatable to students because there is the connection of it to the um, present time, which is the construction of the expressway in the majority of African and American neighborhood in their city. So another student teacher, Rob, worked with another not-for-profit housing organization in the city to develop a service learning project for seniors in his government course as a way to recreate the learning experience he had in Winland Park. So he paired this project with a study of the Department of Housing and Urban Development to help students develop a deeper understanding of local and national connections that involved budget analysis, policy development, and a place-conscious pedagogy. So, okay, next. So, here are the implications for 21st century social studies teacher education. So, providing teacher candidates with an opportunity to meet and learn from parents and leaders in the very community that sends students to the classroom they will student teach in proved to be a powerful learning experience for each participant. So, reflections and discussions throughout the study revealed how the pre-service teachers came to recognize that education is not meant to remove students from their community, but instead can be used to make their community what they want it to be. So, as social studies teacher, it is important that we also have to be knowledgeable enough of the community where we will be teaching at, because how can we teach of something we don't know about? So we are helping students to know about the community where they live in so that they can develop place consciousness and become culturally responsive individuals. So if they are knowledgeable and conscious enough about their community, they can also do their part and act upon to rebuild the community as to what they want them to be. So it may be a community away from crimes, a community away from racial and gender discrimination, or a community where people are working hand in hand in a common goal of improving the community. So another implications is that whilst the site visits prove helpful in the development of how teacher candidates thought about the neighborhoods in which they would be teaching, spending only one class session at a site is not the best approach to place-based teacher education. So through class sessions throughout course occurred, although the class sessions in of the pre-service teachers who visited Winland Park occurred in the north, south, east, west, and central parts of the city, but the Winland Park experience lasted longer than one class session, meaning that not all areas of the city received an extended amount of attention. So, providing similar learning experiences throughout a program of study rather than within only one course allows for more sustained learning experiences that ideally include interactions with neighbors and community leaders during student teaching. So here is lastly the conclusion. So, studying the experiences of teacher candidates with particular attention to how participants conceptualize the intersection of culture and community adds a necessary bottom up approach to teacher education. So, being in the neighborhoods that their students lived in before student teaching helped pre service teachers enter their placements with a more open mind about where and who they would be teaching than before the summer course. So, meeting with parents, community leaders, and residents changed how pre service teachers imagine the real world of the students they would be working with to be and um, real world of the students they would be working with to be, and led to a sense of responsibility for designing social studies lessons that attend to the diversities and strengths of their students' neighborhood. So that ends my discussion, and thank you for listening. Have a good day, everyone.